Well, welcome to the Green Mountain Falls Trail Ambassador Training. Thank you for your passion for the outdoors and for nature, and for wanting to help the people who are wanting to hike Green Mountain Falls and all the great trails in the area. Over the next hour or so, me, Hiking Bob, and the Green Mountain Falls town staff will talk about the program and inspire you to get outdoors and be that great steward that we need. Before we get started, I want to introduce myself. My name is Aaron Rogers. I work with the Trails and Open Space Coalition of the Pikes Peak region. I am the program and event coordinator. I'm with Hiking Bob today. I'm going to let him introduce himself. Go ahead, Bob. You can introduce yourself. He'll be helping with this training as well.
Hi, I'm Bob Falcone, known as Hiking Bob. And welcome to this program. I think it's a great program, and I really like Green Mountain Falls' approach to how to deal with the crowding and the increase in usage, and definitely this is a positive way to manage that. I am the past president or the past chair of the El Paso County Parks Advisory Board. I'm on the board of directors at the Friends of Cheyenne Mountain State Park, and I used to be on the board of directors at the Friends of Cheyenne Canyon, and I'm also on the city's TOPS working committee. So I have a lot of experience in outdoor stuff, including developing these kind of programs. So hopefully we can put together a nice program for everybody.
All right. So the goals of this program, and what to expect. What we want to find are people who have a joy for the outdoors, people who want to make a difference in the community of Green Mountain Falls. And what to expect from this training is just kind of a how-to guide with big, wide brushstrokes about how to be a park ambassador, and what to expect when you're out on the trails and how to be safe. Some basic knowledge of leave no trace, and a little basic knowledge of what to expect on the trails in Green Mountain Falls. All right, next up, I'm going to let Deani from the town of Green Mountain Falls talk a little bit about what they expect out of the program.
Sure. So just to give some background, back in 2019, the town did a comprehensive plan, and they conducted a number of different town meetings. The community gave a lot of feedback onto what it identified as being characteristic for the town's identity. So one of the big things that people talked about was wanting to really retain the small town nature, small town feel of Green Mountain Falls. But they also identified wanting the town to become a hiking haven, and also identify the town as a popular tourist destination. So what we've seen over the years is that the amount of tourists that come, particularly during the summer months, but then also in particular this year, because of all the people wanting to get outdoors during the COVID pandemic, we really started to see the tourists coming for the trails start to strain our town's infrastructure at times. There have been more issues with stressful interactions between residents and tourists. And so what we're seeing is really the trail tourism competing with our desire for a small town feel. So this Trail Ambassador program, I think, is a really smart way for us to try and maintain both of those values in an overall positive way, in a win-win situation for everyone. It helps improve hiker interactions, it helps orient tourists, and it also helps to shape positive hiker behaviors. So just so you know, to give context, the town, it does have in place some grant funding and a long-term plan to improve parking and signage. But for that to go through the public planning process, it's going to take some time. And so this is a way for us to be proactive and also address the fact that the issues that we're seeing this year because of all the people getting outdoors for COVID, it's not likely to just go away, because we have seen a number of these issues in the past, particularly during the summer months. So that's kind of where this idea stems from, is wanting to address all of those issues.
Fantastic. Thank you, Deani. All right, so the Trails and Open Space Coalition, the organization I work for, is a 501c3 nonprofit. We are active in the Pikes Peak region. The Trails and Open Space Coalition, our mission is to advocate for the stewardship and the conservation and the building of a great network of trails and open spaces across El Paso and Teller County. We have programs that take place from with help or technical assistance with friends groups. We sit in on all sorts of meetings with park advisory boards, with city staffs across the region. We have projects that from the fluorescent fossil beds all the way out into the eastern plains. With the Trail Ambassador program, this is the first in a series of Trail Ambassador programs that we're putting together. There's a big need in Green Mountain Falls because of all the traffic, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. We're also working on other Trail Ambassador programs for the incline, for open spaces in Colorado Springs. And we're also talking to the Mueller State Park Friends Group as well about a future Friends Group. So next, let's talk about some of the current trends going on in the Pikes Peak region with outdoor recreation. Prior to COVID, in the before time, we were seeing just astronomical growth in tourism and with just the outdoor recreation community as a whole in the Pikes Peak region, Colorado Springs. Due to COVID, we saw about a 3-month dip in tourism. But at the same time, our trails saw just about a 10 times increase of people on them. With the urban trails that we have, we had a lot more bike riders, especially on the Pikes Peak Greenway that kind of goes across El Paso County. We've also seen an explosion in hiking as well. In our state parks, our numbers are up. At any given time, at any trailhead, you're going to find full parking lots. Now that we've gotten deeper into the summer and kind of coming to the end of summer, we have the explosion of tourists. And we also have a lot more people who are going outside because hiking is the only activity they can do, or the only outdoor exercise they can do as well. So as we look into the future, we expect these trends to continue. Right now, the Pikes Peak region, more specifically Colorado Springs, is the #1 tourist location in the country right now. With that, people come here for the outdoors. And as Garden of the Gods fills up, North Cheyenne Canyon fills up, people will be pushed more into the mountains. And that's why we're seeing more people on the trails in Green Mountain Falls. That's where this need for this program comes from. All right, so let's talk about the Trail Ambassador. What is a Trail Ambassador? Well, overall, it's a person who loves to be outdoors. It's a person who loves nature, who loves outdoor recreation, but also has a bubbly personality where they want to talk to others and interact with the public. For this program, we would love people who want to be trail ambassadors that love to talk and love to tell all their good stories about what they found in the trails of Green Mountain Falls. A little general knowledge of the trails is nice. That's where we're coming with the training, and we'll help you become a master of the trails and understand the area really well. With a trail ambassador as well, it's a person who is just understanding and friendly. We'll get into a little bit more of what a trail ambassador is not, but a trail ambassador is a person who isn't going to reprimand. They're not going to be a police officer or a park ranger. They are not law enforcement. They're not going to be a hero and save the day, but instead, they're just going to be a good steward and model all those good things that we expect out of a person who would know on trails. All right, so why are park ambassadors needed? Right now with Green Mountain Falls and other places around the Front Range and across the country for that matter, budgets have been hit hard, extremely hard by the pandemic. A lot of park budgets have been decimated, and really it'll take, as we've heard, 3 to 5 years for a lot of places to recover. Because of that, there is really no money to go into staff. No time to hire more rangers, no more money to hire park guides or interpretive staff in places. And in small towns, there's certainly not enough budget to have paid staff out all the time. So that's where volunteers are needed. Volunteers are the lifebloods of parks across the country, and especially here in our region. And trail ambassadors are those special volunteers who get out there and fill in those gaps. So what do we need? Why are they needed right now? Well, we need a good, positive first point of contact for hikers. We need someone who can model good behavior. We need someone with enough background information to just answer general questions about where trailheads are, what to expect on trails, what nature to expect, where have wildlife been spotted, things like that. Also, someone who has good tips about, where to, where are the shady spots along trails, where does it get steep and where you should take breaks beforehand, or what hazards are coming up. Speaking of hazards and maintenance issues, with smaller staffs across the region, trail ambassadors have been more important in spotting issues. Trail ambassadors aren't expected to fix anything. If they can take reports or just mental notes and pictures of where hazards are along trails, then those issues can be fixed in the future. Also, with the extreme use of our trails, with a lot more people out there, we have a lot of users who just haven't been outside enough to know about leave no trace principles. So trail ambassadors, they can help teach people about how to use the land and how to share and how to leave it the way they found it or leave it even better. And most importantly, we need trail ambassadors. We need them to share their love. Right now, we're in a time where the parks need good advocates, and that's where trail ambassadors come in and spread that love for the nature and the outdoors community. So next up, Bob will talk about what do park ambassadors do.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. And that really is a good synopsis of what trail ambassadors, why we need them out there. So we have an issue in a lot of parks, not just in Green Mountain Falls, where you have a lot of people going out there and they overwhelm either a park or a trail or a community. And a lot of times what we see as bad behavior is mostly that they just don't know. These visitors don't know what to do and may not understand a certain ethics and etiquette of trail use. And Aaron will talk a little bit about leave no trace a little bit later on. But what trail ambassadors do is just talk to the public, say hi to people when you see them, interact with them a little bit, ask them if they need anything. If you notice that maybe they may not be carrying any water or something along those lines, just a little talk to the people, talk to the public, and they will typically start to answer questions once somebody interacts with them. Apparently when it looks like somebody who is familiar with the area or the trail or just familiar in outdoor recreation. So we spend time at the trailheads and talk to the users. Maybe you have a handful of maps, and I found this to be useful when I've done this in other parks. You have a handful of printed maps, or you have a resource people could use on their cell phone, and just say, hey, do you need a map of the area? Which trail do you want to use? Do you have an idea where you'd like to go today? Are you looking for suggestions? Just do that kind of stuff and talk to people. A lot of times I've heard about this trail and I want to go try this hike, and they really don't know where it is they're going. They may not realize that the Catamount Trail, for example, the Catamount Falls Trail is a pretty steep trail in Green Mountain Falls, and a lot of them are because you're right up against the mountains. You have to do a lot of climbing to get to these trails. They may not realize that, and you're not there to discourage them from doing that, but just to make sure they understand what they're getting into. In Green Mountain Falls, it would especially be important to be walking between the lake and the trailheads where the users are going to be walking, so that you minimize them from walking in the middle of the road and impeding traffic and maybe being a little loud. And we'll talk about how you do that and how you do that in a gentle way. Spend time on the busiest trails. Catamount Falls Trail, I'm sure, is the busiest trail in Green Mountain Falls. It's always been when I've visited there. You want to be positive. So the idea is to not be the guy or gal who's going to be sitting there going, we don't want you doing this. The idea is to say, we hope you enjoy your time here. Here's how we can make this better for you. Here's how you can really have a good, enjoyable time. And the key thing to this is we want the trail ambassadors to seek out people to talk to. Just don't stand there like a rock and expect people to come up and talk to you. We want you to wave at everybody, say hi. Some people are going to want to chat with you. Some people just want to go about their business. That's fine. But the idea is for you to actually seek out people to talk to. And if you do this for a while, you can start to pick up on body language of people who may not be sure what they're doing, and those are people you want to interact with. And I should say that in my previous career, I was a firefighter and I was in law enforcement. So I got to read people's body language really well and be able to see who maybe needed to be interacted with and who didn't want to be bothered. You'll learn that if you do this long enough, and we hope you stay with this. You'll learn how to figure out who to talk to, but you should at least be acknowledging, waving, saying hi to everybody that you meet out there. And let's see, Aaron, can you go to the next one? There we go. So Aaron kind of touched on this, but we are not, trail ambassadors are not law enforcement. You're not firefighters, you're not paramedics, you're not park rangers or game wardens. And the idea is that you don't want to, again, we'll go back to what we said earlier, this is supposed to be a positive experience for people. So you're not there to be the person yelling at people. We definitely don't want raised voices or anything along those lines. We don't expect you to fight fires. Now, some of you who do this may be on the Green Mountain Falls Fire Department, which is awesome. I was a firefighter, it would be great. We're not there to be paramedics, but some of you may be EMTs or paramedics. That's awesome. But your job here is to be a trail ambassador, to portray a good image for the community and to help promote by good positivity, a good hiking ethic, a good town ethic, a good, how to be a good neighbor to this community, which was so nice that they could have gone one way and the other way of finding a way to welcome people in the community. You want to keep promoting that image. You're not a park ranger or game warden. You're not there to enforce hunting regulations or fishing regulations or anything along those lines. We'll talk about what happens if you get asked questions like that, but that is not what we're doing. We do not aggressively approach anybody. This is definitely a very much a laid back, very positive experience that we want people to have, and we do that by how we approach people. So let's talk a little bit about preparing for your outing. Of course, you're going to be setting an example here for other hikers. So you should look like you're going out for a hike and wear what you would wear when you're going out for a hike. You should be wearing hiking attire. You should be wearing hiking boots. If you're out there wearing a pair of flip-flops and don't have a pack with you handy with rain gear and things like that, you're not setting a safety example. So be prepared to be out there as if you were going hiking. Have a pack with you that's got water and it's got snacks in it, that's got rain gear in it, an extra layer of clothing, especially when we get towards the cooler weather. So you can show somebody what they should be having. If they ask you, what should I wear? Well, take a look at what I've got here in my pack. Obviously, COVID-19 precautions. Hopefully we won't need these in another, less than a year, but for the time being, COVID-19 precautions. You should be wearing a mask. You should be maintaining a social distance. Know how to watch the weather. Keep an eye on the weather, especially here in this area in the summer. We get our monsoon season. We have thunderstorms. Later in the year, we're going to be getting into where we may have these snowstorms that pop up. You live in Green Mountain Falls. You probably are very aware of the specificity of the weather in your town. So make sure you're aware of that, and you could talk to people about that. Be aware of aggressive or dangerous users. Again, we're not going to interact with them. We're not going to be aggressive with them, but maybe this is something that you have to report to the marshal's office or the sheriff's office. Medical emergencies, know what to do in a medical emergency. If we don't expect you to be an EMT or a paramedic and step in there and treat people, but know how to identify medical emergencies, who to contact. Wildlife, of course, everybody's going to ask you about how often do you see bears in the community? When do bears come by? Where can I go see the bears? Obviously, we want to discourage that kind of stuff, but we want to be aware of wildlife in that area because people are going to ask you about these things. Are there bears here? What should I do if I see a bear? Just be aware of those kind of things. But generally, the idea is to promote a safe and enjoyable experience for people. So just kind of, when you're doing this, do it as if you're going out hiking But on your way out hiking, you're going to stop and you're going to chat with people and give them guidance. And that's where we like everybody to be with us as far as being safe. And of course, your safety is the number one priority here. The reason why we mention aggressive and dangerous users, if you run into somebody who's aggressive or dangerous, do not interact with them. Do not get in their face. Do not, definitely, we never, ever, ever get physical with anybody at all. This is supposed to be a very passive thing that we use to interact with people. Just know who to call, how to contact the marshal's office or the sheriff's office if you really have an issue with somebody, but do not interact with those type of people.
Thanks,
if you will,
Bob.
then, yeah.
You know, with the programs I've worked in the past, the majority of people, the majority of the or the trail ambassadors I have worked with have said the majority of their questions have been, what can I expect up ahead on the trail? What wildlife, what fun things have you seen recently? And they always get asked, where is that good place to go eat? Or where is the good place to go get a cup of coffee? So, you know, when you're out in the trails, it's good to have an idea of, you know, where in town is a good place to eat. Like send people off to the pantry or the Mucky Duck, or, you know, things like that that is in your little community that you're proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. And with everybody there being from in Green Mountain Falls, you can answer those questions. And one of the other things we want to talk about real briefly is you're going to get a lot of people who are going to come into your town, and you may have a day, which happens pretty frequently, that the parking fills up by the lake and there's a lot of people walking up and down the road. And one of the interactions we'll work with you on when we do the in-person part of this is how to interact with people to get them not to walk in the road and maybe not be so loud because they're walking through a neighborhood where people live. But one of the other questions you may have is, well, if this is so busy, where else can I go hiking today? And that's where your knowledge of the trails in your area is going to be real important. You might want to tell them, you know what, Catamount Preserve up the street in Divide is a really nice place. Mueller State Park has some nice trails. Rainbow Gulch might be a good place for you to go. Lovell Gulch might be a good place for you to go. And have that knowledge you have from being trail users in that community about where to direct people to or suggest people go to that can give them another really positive experience that they may say, well, you know, I got chased out of this town, or it was so crowded I couldn't park anywhere, and, you know, I got yelled at for parking in somebody's driveway. You know, the way to deal with those things is to give people suggestions of other places to go visit, and they're going to come away from that going, they suggested I go to a place I never knew about. People come to Green Mountain Falls, you probably get a lot of repeat because they may just not be aware of other places to go visit. And it's, you know, you can help them by suggesting other places, and then you're giving them a new experience that they may not have had before, which again is a positive thing. They may not be spending time in your town this day, but hey, I found this great trail because this park ambassador who was there to help us gave me a suggestion of a really nice place to go visit, and now we're going to go over there and we're going to go visit that spot, and wow, what a cool place. So now I have another place I can go to. This does a couple things. It's a positive image for your community, and it helps to manage the impact of all these people, this traffic and these users that come to your community. And it's a really, I have found that to be very helpful to deal with that. And Aaron, I kind of jumped across some things. So if I can just go back just a little bit, one of the things to deal with weather is if you're the trail ambassador, and again, we'll go over how to do this when we meet in person. But one of the things to do is to know the weather and to remind people, especially if you're the trail ambassador at 1:30 in the afternoon in the summer, is to remind people, hey, you know, we get monsoons through here, so we might get a thunderstorm or might rain. Do you have rain gear with you? And do you know what to do when you start hearing thunder? Maybe it's time to get off the trail and get back to your car and get into some kind of shelter. You know, those are the kind of things that we want you to be aware of. And of course, as we know, like on your Catamount Trail, for example, that trail gets icy really quickly. So if you're there in December after it snowed, are people who are hiking past you, are they wearing traction devices on their shoes? Or do they have traction devices with them so they can slip on their shoes so they prevent a fall? Do they have hiking poles to help stabilize themselves? These are things that you do as a park ambassador to make the user experience more positive, that somebody doesn't end up slipping on the ice and falling, and now your fire department has to go out there and rescue them, and that puts the fire department out, and that also makes their user experience obviously a terrible experience. They fell and they got hurt. You could help prevent that by saying, hey, you know what, it's a little icy on this trail, you should probably have some traction. You may not want to do this today, maybe you want to get some traction for your shoes. We'll talk about how to do that and examples of that, but the idea is to help people have a positive user experience, and that's one of the ways that we do that. You know, we talked a little bit about medical emergencies. Again, that's just going to be a matter of just calling 911 if you see something like that, and just manage the situation a little bit, maybe help with a little bit of crowd control, keep people away from whoever's ever having the emergency. We don't expect you to treat people, but if you're an EMT or a paramedic, you know, you may want to just discuss with, you know, your powers to be at the city government about how much they want you to get involved with that. My guess would be probably just call 911 and be a good observer and just be supportive if things like that happen. So I think that these are the things that we really want you to do, and to promote a positive experience there, and how to interact. Again, when we do this in person, we'll really go through some scenarios and how to deal with people like that. Aaron, thank you.
All right, so let's see, next up, we're going to talk a little bit about the Leave No Trace. So one of the bigger issues that is really the inspiration behind this program is just the explosion of use of the trails in Green Mountain Falls, and how the users are behaving in the neighborhoods. When we use Leave No Trace and when we introduce the principles, it just makes everybody a more considerate user in a neighborhood or a new area. And it makes people think ahead, plan ahead to really take care of their natural spots. So with Leave No Trace, these are all principles. They're not the rule of the land. A lot of times there are some of these principles that you just can't pull off every trip that you go outside. But the main goal is to keep all these principles in mind, that when you're out being a trail ambassador, that you can either show people by leading by example, or you can give people little gentle reminders before they find themselves getting into trouble. So the first principle is to plan ahead and prepare. Before you start your shift, before you go out, just make sure you check the weather report to see if there's anything that's coming up, like snowstorms or rain or extreme heat or extreme cold. Plan your route. Have an idea about what you're going to do, what trailheads you're going to spend time at, what loop you're going to do, or if you just plan on spending time at the lake and talk to people as they get out of their cars and head off on their adventures. Just make sure that you're preparing for your trip, and make sure that you have those ideas in the back of your head about the routes you're going to take, the trails you're going to be on, and things like that. The second principle is to travel, and not so much in this case with trail ambassadors, but to camp on durable surfaces. So along the trails within Green Mountain Falls, there's no camping, so you don't have to worry about that. But when you're traveling, think about the footsteps that you're leaving. Make sure that you're walking on trails or along the road in the safest spots. And make sure that you're, that you have a chance to maybe talk to people every once in a while about why you shouldn't go off trails, or why you shouldn't be using road trails, and talk about the damage that can take place when you walk on soft surfaces or walk on vegetation. We don't want to kill all those wonderful wildflowers out there. We want to leave them for Bob to take pictures of. So we want to make sure that we don't impact all the places that we travel upon. One of the big issues that we need to deal with is the disposal of waste properly. So along the trails, and especially along the areas where cars are parked and people are roaming around Green Mountain Falls, find their trailheads, is that we're hearing reports of people leaving behind dog poop, or the little dog poop bags, or trash behind, water bottles. Water bottles are usually one of the big culprits. People are leaving behind the face coverings, masks, the rubber gloves. So we want to make sure that we don't do that. As trail ambassadors, we shouldn't leave anything behind on the ground. If you're comfortable doing it, bring a trash bag with you, and you can pick up some of the trash along the way. And make note, even if it's just a mental note of what you're seeing. I know that being a trail ambassador myself in the past and doing cleanups, I know that I've found a lot of straws and a lot of cups, like styrofoam cups from Chick-fil-A and things like that, that really changed my viewpoint on, how to be more sustainable and how to recycle better and what not to put out back into our dumps, and to make sure that we're getting that off the ground so it doesn't wash in our waterways.
Hey,
Another
Aaron,
interesting, yeah.
sorry, if I could throw in here too, there's a lot of people, you mentioned dogs and people leaving dog poop behind. So one thing that park ambassadors may want to carry with them is a couple of extra, like the plastic bags you get at King Soopers or Safeway or something like that, or City Market. Have them in your pocket. If you see somebody with a dog and they don't have any poop bags, is to hand them one and remind them to remind them to pick up after their dog, and then remind them there's no staff of people that comes by to pick up all those bags, so they have to take them with them.
Exactly. There's no such thing as the poop fairy, so nothing's going to come out and pick it up and move it out. So that is a very important idea as well. Something interesting too, that since there's the waterways in Green Mountain Falls and the creeks, everything will eventually flow into the ocean. So a while back, I heard from the Creek Week people, the Fountain Creek Week that takes place the last week of September and first week of October. They said that if you put a rubber duck on the ground, especially in Green Mountain Falls, that will eventually wash into the water in a given amount of time. And once it's in the water, it will take just about 3 years for it to get to the Gulf of Mexico. It will flow into Fountain Creek. It will flow into the Arkansas River, into the Mississippi River, and eventually into the ocean. So be mindful of what you see on the ground. It will make an impact for all our neighbors that are downstream and downhill from you. All right, so leave what you find. So I'm guilty. I have taken stuff before from the ground I should never have taken. But as a trail ambassador, you have to fight the urge to take that pretty rock. If you find an old railroad spike, you should leave it behind. We want to leave all these things of interest where you find them, so that it inspires other people to be curious about the outdoors and about cultural history and everything else. Not to mention that when you pick up rocks or build a cairn that isn't in a crucial spot, that you're destroying habitat for all the little animals and creatures out there. So be mindful of how you move things and what you're moving, and you want to just leave everything behind. Since you're outdoors so much, it's always tempting to pick up that really cool piece of granite. So let's leave it behind. So campfires, this is really easy. There's no campfires in Green Mountain Falls in the trails. When you get into the Pike National Forest, the rules change a little bit. You can always check in to see on the internet, on the Pikes Speak Forest Services pages. You can check to see if there's any fire restrictions in the area. But if someone asks you, you can always tell them that it's not encouraged, or there's no fires in Green Mountain Falls, and to hold off in the backcountry. So respecting wildlife is one of the big issues that we have. Green Mountain Falls is one of those special places where there's a lot of wildlife. Because of the terrain, because of the people who live there, animals get spotted more often, and they're also trying to make their way to the water to get drinks and to move on. It's also part of a migratory corridor as well. So a lot of big game and small game as well will move through the area a few times a year in big numbers. It's also known as a haven for bears. We want to respect wildlife, and leading up to this point, we've talked a lot about leaving, making sure we pick up food and dog waste and everything else. When we pick up everything and make sure that we leave no trace behind, that's respecting wildlife. As CPW says, that a fed bear is a dead bear. So we want to make sure that we keep the trash out of their paws. Also, with respecting wildlife as well, we've seen this more along the incline in a lot of our busier trails, are the people who play music. So they have a Bluetooth speaker that hangs on their side and they listen to music. What we found is that that's really harmful to animals who really rely on hearing to keep them safe. We have an abundance of deer in the Ute Pass region, and the deer are really spooked and bugged by that music or by loud noises. Loud talking or music. It makes them susceptible to mountain lions. Mountain lions love to capitalize on distracted deer And the more sound that we make out there, the more issues that we have, and the more it keeps the mountain lions around in the populated areas that we'd rather not have them in. So be mindful of sound and music and things like that that you might have in yourself when you're out hiking. And also, don't feed the wildlife either. You know, it's if you see a chipmunk, if you see a squirrel, and hold off from feeding it too. All right, so
Aaron,
yeah.
Sorry, if I could throw in one thing about music too, is that's also a matter of not just wildlife, but also being considerate of other visitors, that not everybody wants to hear the music you have. And that's why we've gone to a great extent to develop really cool earbuds that you can wear. And we could talk a little bit about not wearing noise canceling earbuds, but it's also a matter of being considerate of your visitors who want to go out there and enjoy the outdoors and hear the birds and things like that. So not be blaring your music all over the place for everybody else to hear.
Exactly. And that's a good segue into our last principle, the be considerate of other visitors. And with this one, it's more so be considerate of the visitors and the neighbors that live along the trails and along the roadways that you get to the trailheads. The big issue is that when you live along these roads, let's see all of these people who walk into the trailheads. When we're out using it ourselves, we don't think about that. We think like we're just going this one time and it's not a big deal. For the neighbors who live along these areas, they have to be patient and deal with these issues every single day, and in big numbers. So you yourself, when you're talking on your cell phone loudly, or you're out with your dog who's barking a lot along the trails, we don't think about it as a big deal, but for those neighbors, it adds up. And we don't want to, you know, we don't want to make anybody angry. We want the least amount of things left behind. So be considerate about how what you do personally along the trails impacts the neighbors who live there. And also, as a trail ambassador, you're kind of a proactive thinker. If you see something before it happens, like a person who might be inconsiderate to others, like a person walking down the middle of the road, it'd be an opportunity to talk to them about, you know, how to walk safely along roads and how not to impact traffic. Or if you see people parking on the road, you can thank them for parking the right spot. If they're parking in a parking lot down by the lake, you can thank them for parking there and remind them how it's bad to park in people's driveways. That happens a lot, and it shouldn't happen. So if we are proactive and getting people to be considerate of others, then a lot of the issues that plague our mountain communities will go away real fast. All right, so the next section, we're going to talk a little bit about just basic Green Mountain Falls trail knowledge. Let's see. I'm going to pull up that page again. So with this, we're not going to dive into a lot of deep detail about the trails. We can do a lot more of that when we're in person. But what I want to do is give you some of the resources that you can go out and find things, and things that as a park guide that I've done in my past and as a trail ambassador, just tips about how you can learn more about trails and what to kind of expect. So if you're a user and you're going to trails in Green Mountain Falls for the first time, when you type in Green Mountain Falls trails, the first thing that comes up is All Trails. It is a very popular app that millions of people use across the country. And when they go in, they're going to find the most popular trails in the area. When you type in Green Mountain Falls and All Trails, the first few trails that pop up are these. So you'll see like the Thomas Loop or Mount Esther, and there's a few others I'll show you in a second. But what this is good for is that it gives a general description so you can kind of get a feel for what you'd expect there. And then it tells you in the descriptions itself, it gives you reviews, and the users can leave comments behind. And in those comments, you learn really important little things about where there's issues like trail closures, when there's ice on the trails, or when people are getting confused and parking the wrong places. You can use all this information as a trail ambassador and help people find their way. So again, here's a few more of the more popular trails. And we know that Crystal Falls Trail is one of the more popular trails out there. And on all trails, there's 11 different trails and loops they talk about. Some are really confusing. So when you look at those really confusing trails, there'll be people who try to find those. As a trail ambassador, you can be proactive and look at those and just help thinking of clear, concise ways how to guide a person to find the right path. So the majority of the users are going to probably go up to Crystal Falls and check that out, or go up along the reservoir or in places like that. So another website that I didn't add to this slideshow is there is a Green Mountain Falls page on the internet that it's specific to the area. It has a list of the trails and a short description, and also gives a little bit of the background rules and things like that, and what to expect along the trails. That's another one you can find. It's the third item that's on Google when you Google it. So from time to time, there's trail closures. Right now, Hondo Avenue, there's Carl Springs utility work taking place up there that will push more of the hikers on the Catamount Trail to Belvedere, to that trailhead. So these are little things that you need to know before you go out on the trails. This one is already halfway done and will probably be ending soon, beginning of September. But from time to time, there are other temporary trail impacts and some long-term ones that we'll also keep track of as trail ambassadors. And Bob, do you have anything else you want to add about the trails in Green Mountain Falls?
Well, I'll do a little plug for myself in that I've written a lot of columns for the Indy about hiking in the Green Mountain Falls area. So people can always go to my website and click on the link for the Independent and just do a search there about that. It is real important for people who are doing this work to be trail ambassadors, to be very familiar with the trails. You should really know the trails that you're going to be talking to people about very well. Now, do you need to be an expert on trail construction or anything like that? No, but you should be able to tell people and give people good advice. So for example, you should know what trails are closed or what open, or what are open, what trails are better at different times of the year than others. What's also really important is that when a family comes to you and says, hey, I got my family here, we want to go on a trail, what's a good trail for them is to probably not send them to the Mount Esther Trail, which anybody's done. It's a very difficult trail. It's very steep. It's very difficult to do. You should know which trails are going to be better for that group, or at least give them advice and describe the trail so they can make an informed decision on which trail to go to. That's really what we find a lot of people, when I've done this before, just they've heard the name of a trail, but they don't really know anything about it. They may be underestimating or overestimating their abilities. People tend to overestimate their abilities. And you should be able to, at very least, give them enough information that they can make a good informed decision about where they want to go hiking. And again, if they have a good time out there, that's a positive experience. And that's what this whole program is about, to give people positive experiences.
Exactly. All right, so last, we're going to talk about, what does a shift look like? When you're outside on the trails, what can you expect? Well, first, when you're out on a shift, you'll either start off at your house and just walk to the trailheads that you're familiar with. You can walk to the trails that you're familiar with and walk around. If you're driving into the area, you can go to the lake and start there at the trail information side and wait for people to come by. All of those are good ways of going about it, being a trail ambassador, and we'll talk more about this when we're in person. When you're out on the trails, you can walk them. Now, these aren't like the trails where you're trying to get your best time on the Catamount Trail, where you're trying to get up the hills the fastest. These are slow walks, and as a trail ambassador, we'll show you how it works, but you're definitely taking your time, you're savoring nature more, and you're seeking out the people to talk to. What to expect time-wise and commitment-wise? Well, everything's a suggestion, but we're hoping that when it's during the busy season, that you find a way to get outside twice, maybe 3 times a week. You find a way to be on the trails for about 2 to 3 hours. For a lot of us, that's easy to do when you're a trail ambassador. The time flies by. When it's a busy day, and those are the days I love to be out, there's a lot of people to talk to, a lot of good stories, and it's fun. A lot of good things happen out there, and you feel good afterwards. So 2 to 3 hours, twice a week, is a good way to get started. When you're out in the trails, it's fun when you have a buddy. So consider convincing family and friends to, be a trail ambassador as well and go out with them. When you have 2 or 3 people, it's easy to approach people. It's easier to tell stories. So think about finding someone that you can go with. And of course, Bob talked a little bit about before, but what to bring. So as we're looking ahead of things that you might want to get a hold of and be ready with, a backpack, sunscreen, because it does get hot out there at the altitude. Make sure to have things that'll make you feel safe with COVID, like a face mask of some type. Also, if you need like hand sanitizer, make sure you have that on you as well. Make sure you have a few band-aids on you and a first aid kit, more so for yourself if something happens to you. Make sure you have water, snacks, a wide brim hat is one of the best things I ever had, and sunglasses. So, just think about the essential things that you need to be successful out there. If you have a map of the area, make sure you have it on you. If you have printouts, you can do that as well. Even though during COVID, it's probably not the best idea to hand things out. But just keep in mind of all the ways that you can make another person's experience a little easier or a little more enriching. So, if you have any questions, you can email me. My name's Aaron Rogers. My email with TASC is Aaron, AARON, @trailsandopen-spaces.org. And I can answer some questions about what it would be like to be a trail ambassador and things like that. I know that Bob has his own sites too. You can get a hold of him. And Bob, what would be the best way to get a hold of you?
There's two ways. They can email me directly at info@hikingbob.com. If that's, if people don't remember that, just go to hikingbob.com and there's a contact link on there that'll connect you to a form you could fill out. If you put in the subject line, Park Ambassador or Trail Ambassador, it'll catch my, you can also private message me on any social media that I have, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I will answer any question I can as quickly as I can.
And Deani and Victor, what would be the best way to get a hold of the city or the town of Green Mountain Falls with any questions?
So for me, if you want to contact me, I can be reached at gmftrustee, and then my last name, which is LOO, @gmail.com.
Awesome.
Yeah, to contact me, my best email is clerk@gmfco.us. They can also call the office phone, which is 719-684-9414. And other emails to contact any of us. Instead of clerk, you can put planner or manager for bigger questions, but pretty much everything should be directed to the clerk email and that number. That number has extensions, but those are the two main ones to contact me since I'll be the main liaison for all of this.
All right, so to finish up, looking into the future. So you'll be getting information about when and how we're going to meet for the in-person training. Expect to be outside for at least 90 minutes or 2 hours. Come ready with questions, be ready to hike, and be ready to be a good ambassador of our great outdoors. We will go over all the little fine tricks and tips about how to talk to people, how to be safe on the trails, and how to start a conversation with a person. A lot can happen in 30 seconds, and we'll teach you how to do that with a person. But again, I thank you for joining in with us during this presentation. If you have any questions, please ask. And we hope that you become a trail ambassador and you're an ambassador for a very long time. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.